j'ai du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Well, unless we all pull together to get that down, and we don't have disparities in some states are doing this and some states are doing that, we're going to continue to have this up and down. So that's the thing that I'm concerned about, because I believe we have it within our power to be able to get that down. Bottom line is, I'm not pleased with how things are going.
In an interview with National Geographic yesterday, Dr. Anthony Fauci said he's not happy with the state of the coronavirus outbreak in the United States. Meanwhile, as coronavirus cases continue to surge across the country, the U.S. is cutting back on testing. I just can't believe I'm saying this. According to Axios, nationally, the daily number of tests performed is about 17% lower than it was at the end of July, with testing also declining in hard-hit states. Although experts say the reduction in testing has helped clear away delays that caused a lag in releasing test results, conducting fewer tests may also hinder the country's coronavirus response, as if it isn't hindered already. At the end of July, the U.S. was conducting more than 800,000 tests a day. This week, it hovered around 715,000. Even as states with particularly bad outbreaks pull back on their testing, the number of positive test results is still high, an indicator that more testing needs to be conducted. In an effort to stop the spread of COVID-19, Joe Biden called on governors across the U.S. to issue mask-wearing mandates, with President Trump pushing back, claiming the Democrat is, quote, putting left-wing politics before facts and evidence.
Every single American should be wearing a mask when they're outside for the next 3 months at a minimum. Every governor should mandate mandatory mask wearing. The estimates by the experts are it will save over 40,000 lives in the next 3 months. 40,000 lives. The people act responsibly. And it's not about your rights, it's about your responsibilities as an American.
At every turn, Biden has been wrong about the virus, ignoring the scientific evidence and putting left-wing politics before facts and evidence. Sleepy Joe opposed both the China and the Europe travel bans. You know that. He opposed the China travel ban that I instituted very early and the Europe travel ban that I instituted.
Just get out of this. I mean, this is just the president just lied 4 times in a row, and I just cut it short because we don't need to hear him lying. He says Joe Biden has been wrong every step of the way. Was he wrong in January when he penned an opinion piece for USA Today, warning of a coming pandemic, warning that many lives would be lost if the president doesn't get his CDC and build teams around this to combat a virus? Was he wrong? Or were you wrong when you went to the CDC spewing your germs all over the place, saying if you can get a test or you want a test, you can get a test when no one could get a test? Or maybe were you wrong when you said it would just go away miraculously? Maybe were you wrong when you said it was just one person coming from China? Maybe were you wrong when you said perhaps you don't want to use the Defense Production Act to mobilize a nationalized response to testing and contact tracing like other countries have done, and their numbers have gone down. And while you might be keeping the testing numbers down by slowing down testing, which is just utter stupidity, talk about ditzy. Talk about a ditzy, stupid, botched response to a pandemic that is killing tens of thousands of people, over 160,000 right now. This is on you. Many of those deaths, Mr. President, are on you and your terrible response to this virus. Obvious, terrible response. You can't even show leadership on masks. And now you're politicizing your lies against Joe Biden, who's saying everyone should wear masks because it could reduce the numbers of transmissions of the coronavirus, which is what Fauci is saying, which is what all the doctors are saying and former CDC directors saying, people who actually have degrees and decades of knowledge in studying pandemics and infectious diseases. And yet you go out there and just blow off stupid ideas about injecting Clorox into your body and taking hydroxychloroquine when it isn't passed, isn't safe enough, saying you took it. It's idiotic and it's killing people. And you get up there and talk about Joe Biden being wrong? There's nobody who has been more wrong about this than President Donald Trump. Look at the facts. Look at the numbers. Look at the record-breaking deaths. Families losing people by the day. Mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and yes, President Trump, little children actually die from the coronavirus. Maybe not as many. But you say that children miraculously just don't get it. You're wrong. There's no one who has been more wrong than you on this, and you're the President of the United States. And your botched response to this is leading to you losing so badly that you pathetically have to cheat like a sixth grader looking at the paper next to him during a test. You tell everyone you're going to mess up this election, undermine the post office so that the ballots can't be counted, so that the election can't be sanctified. You are pathetic at this point. And every network that shows his lies every day, please do it. Because every day, this president looks more ridiculous. The clothes fall off. We see the lies for ourselves. I do think that every network should bump out and fact check when he's just blatantly lying. But it is so obvious that if some network news directors don't want to bump out, his lies hang out there. It's painful to watch because so many people are dying, and those people who have lost loved ones, they know you're lying. They know now they should have saved themselves. Maybe they should have listened to the scientists and not their president. But it shouldn't be this way, and it doesn't have to be this way, and it didn't have to be this way, but it was because of President Donald Trump.
It is Friday, the 14th of August of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Yes, we've made it, folks, because we have to steel our nerves for the weekend. And the cocktail of choice here, because we are Nighthawks in the Diner of Life, the cocktail of choice, because I've chosen it, is the French 77, the most balanced cocktail in the history of cocktailing. And that's not just an opinion. That is fact. It's not a feeling in the gut, though it feels pretty darn good, I gotta tell you. Not just in the gut. Well, so much news today, and why don't we just start off with and get this out of the way? Because In some ways, maybe I'm proud. But I got kicked off Facebook once again. Yes, I was baited, and I took the bait. But I don't know, I feel a bit more proud. This happens in such a consistent manner, getting kicked off of Facebook, that I've become inured to it. Anyway, the COVID denying was running rampant, the misogyny and racism and just the vitriol. Let's just put it that way. And so the usual Q Colt 45 folks, I guess they're folks. I don't know. Are they mechanical? Maybe. Anyway, they were going off, and so every now and then I just feel, as you know, compelled. Maybe that's the term. Yes, I feel compelled to respond. Boy, the Russians know me. And I'll tell you, I exposed my weakness. You know how Winston, there was the one thing that he feared that he didn't like, that, they could really get him to break, and that was the rat. Remember that? So they put a face cage on him and let a rat get in there and gnaw away at him. So I exposed, I guess, my weakness, at least for now. We'll see how I might be able to overcome my own, knee-jerk reactions. Anyway, whenever a correction on anything with supporting evidence and links, I mean, even the public defender that said, look, I fought against this woman in the courtroom when she was an assistant AG. An assistant AG's fight in the courtroom. We're talking about as the prosecuting attorney in San Francisco. Then later she became the state attorney general. So when she was AG of San Francisco, before that she was an assistant AG, and she battled in the courtroom. And Kamala Harris brought progressive reforms to the judiciary and the police hated her for it, and that's when you started getting all this, she slept with Willie Brown and slapped her way up, because the cops hated Willie Brown too. Why? I think because he was black. And he didn't take shit from nobody, anybody. I'm not a big Willie Brown fan. But, in terms of Speaker of the Assembly, which he held for a bit, which was may still be the most powerful position in California politics. Ask Jess Unruh. He would tell you. Anyway, Willie Brown was hated, and the cops hated Willie Brown. And the San Francisco cops in particular, you think ramparts in L.A. were corrupt. Yeah, they were violent, and they're kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja attitude. But I got to tell you, the San Francisco cops were corrupt let's be honest, the Chicago and the New York cops. I don't know. There was something about it. And Willie Brown didn't take shit from that. And Kamala Harris took on the SFPD, and they hate her still for it. Let's be clear. So, discount the public defender's defense of Kamala Harris. Think about that. Adversarial system. You don't really have a loving place in your heart for that adversary in the courtroom. And usually you don't go out and have, coffee and beers later. Coffee or beer, coffee and beer. I don't know. Modern times. So you would harbor resentment against that adversary because it's in your blood for a considerable time. So this public defender wrestled with coming forward, but she set the record straight. So just discount that. That's fake. That was a plant. I mean, come on. All you have to do is, you don't think she was there? I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't mean to be demeaning, but it's crazy stuff. It really is. So correct that. And then they come back with the usual stuff of we're going to drown you like a witch, like they did at Salem. Salem witch trials. Get out of here, you superstitious cretin. Come on, that's stupid. You're going to burn in hell. Well, that kind of BS. I don't really believe in hell anyway. I'm supposed to feel bad because you're telling me that kind of BS. But where they cross the line? Now, let's be clear. Threaten my life with veiled, which is supposed to be against terms of use. I report that, and Facebook consistently, every time, says, oh, no, that doesn't violate terms of use. Threatening to kill me, saying they're going to muzzle my commie mouth until I can't breathe anymore. Yeah, that's not really a threat, apparently. Drowning me like a witch. Oh, no, that's not a real threat. That's not a credible threat. Of course it's not a credible threat. It's crazy BS. But they also interjected some crazy BS that I don't even believe, but I have to tell you, it just pissed me off. When this one Becky Q lady said, you sacrificed your dead son to Moloch. I can't tell you how pissed that made me. So pissed that without thinking, I just said, fuck you, bitch, and hit enter. And that fuck you, bitch, is construed by Facebook as being bullying and harassment. Not, I call it the basketball rule of monitoring on Facebook with their algorithm. It's not what caused you to apparently make the foul. It's the retaliation. Your retaliation to the motivation is what is called the foul. They can threaten you. They can demean you. They can dismiss you. They can publicly try to humiliate you. And when I say threaten you, I mean threaten your life. If I had come back and said, I want you to drown like a witch, that would have been, yeah. So I don't talk eliminationist talk like that. Except for occasionally I might make a joke of like, oh, well, why don't we put them in Idaho if they don't believe in law and order? And I know there's good people in Idaho. I know, just move them up to Coeur d'Alene. That's where all the racists and Nazis are anyway. I mean, come on, most of them. How many non-Nazis and white supremacists are up there in Coeur d'Alene? Figure that one out, okay? It's a lot of percentages. So, yeah, let's not send them to Idaho. We could send them to somewhere outside of Moscow in Russia instead of Idaho. But that's too far away, I know. And I've made stupid jokes about taking all the baskets of deplorables and putting them in a leaky basket, setting them adrift in the Mediterranean and telling the Italian Navy, hey, they're from Syria. And the Italian Navy doesn't help anybody from Syria. So, I didn't say all in that particular imagining. I said, some, maybe just deplorables. Anyway, I guess maybe that's eliminationist on my part. But I'm joking, and these people are serious. Let's be clear. So I'm off Facebook for 30 days, and it's okay. Pissed me off that they invoked my dead son. That, you would think, is out of bounds. But I know how these people play. And if Vlad thinks that they're going to get me by invoking my dead son now, well, I have other measures that are very active to counter that BS, Vlad. Or whoever your fellow travelers in these great United States might be. You don't think that it was just the military and the politicos that benefited by the Cold War? It didn't have to be a detriment to our psyche. It might have just been able to steal our nerves. And many of us had our nerves steeled. And here we are today. So, yeah. It just made me aware about how raw I am still about my son's death. Time apparently doesn't take that away. Ooh, boy. But one can have control over their animal instincts now, can't they? That's supposed to be what makes us evolved beings. That's what I always thought when I was sitting in Zazen, or even in the lotus position. And I don't mean, well, we'll get there some other day. But we'll. Oh, look at the time. We're just burning up the time. Oh my gosh! And there's so much more. Oh. So, Facebook aside, F Facebook, F Zuckerberg, F the junior high mentality that rules there. The unfortunate thing is that they also have guns and they're being utilized by a hostile foreign power to destroy America. And I'm not kidding. That's not satire. That is actually is that a belief? I think that's a fact. It's not a gut feeling. It is the fact. Speaking of which, you know where Trump got the idea of mucking up the USPS? Yeah, from Vlad, because that's what he did in his rise to whatever it is that he is. Mob dictator of a mob state. So, in my state of Oregon, where we have had mail-in voting for well over 20 years, going on 25, they are removing mailboxes from all of our areas around here. They took hundreds out of Eugene alone. Portland was another massive haul of mailboxes. They're not being ripped out of the street. They're bolted down. They're taking the bolts off. They're not ripping them up. They're being very methodical. And they're taking the mailboxes away. And now we're hearing this idea floated. Oh, well, we can have drop boxes. Those can be they can be fraudulent drop off boxes, because they're not official mailboxes by the USPS, and so therefore there's no USPS mailboxes to drop your mail in. Which I got to tell you, for the whole time I ever voted, I always took it to the drop box at the library. Okay. Now they're talking, well, they, meaning, Trump and his Vichy collaborating crew, are talking about not only keeping new drop boxes from being created, but ripping up the ones existent right now. So, is that messing around with our democracy? I have much harsher terms for it. I think it starts with the F and ends with a K, democracy. Don't be effing around with democracy, and that's what they're doing. And so I guess you could say we're in dire straits. I think that there's enough good people in the USPS that maybe they may go above and beyond, even though now DeJoy is taking away the sorting machines. Oh, you think you're going to be able to get that mail out? I'll show you. I've been doing logistics in this kind of level for a long time. I know all about supply chains. You think that I haven't been able to deliver Coca-Cola in a war zone before? And do you think I haven't been able to cut back on that Coca-Cola when I didn't get what I wanted? I'll show you. And that's what he's doing. And that's why he's there. These effers are monkey-wrenching, and not in a good way. No, this isn't to affect some sort of change for a utopia in which people help people. No, this is monkey-wrenching, actually rat-effing. And I would put in the CK, but for some reason I won't. They are rat-effing our democracy to make this an authoritarian regime. Well, more authoritarian than it already is. So much so that not only are mailboxes being ripped out of the streets, well, they're being unbolted. But in Bend, Oregon, which is, come on, it's Bend. They could have filmed High Plains Drifter instead of Italy. They could have filmed High Plains Drifter at Bend. But no. Anyway, Bend's not a mecca and hotbed of civil unrest. Let's just put it that way. Jeez. So ICE decided in their infinite wisdom to pick up two guys going to work. Throw them into a ICE bus and take them to the showers, I guess. The trains up there, there's Amtrak. They have to share the freight lines, so it's not really an effective way to get. So they have these buses, and they're prison buses. And for whatever reason, they were stopped in a part of Bend for a little bit of time. I don't know. Maybe the ICE guys wanted to get a Big Mac or something. It looked like they were near a fast food area. And when they came back, a citizen, a Bend resident, wanted to know what was going on and discovered that it was two guys who have been living there for over 15 years. One guy almost 20. They have kids in high school. That kind of thing, right? And so he stood there and put out a little message. Hey, so-and-so's, I'm the bus, the ICE bus. People going, what? And in several hours, and then this fellow stood in front of the bus to keep the bus from moving. So a few hours, hundreds of Bend residents, moms, kids, dads, professors from the local school, merchants. Because, Bend's not a big town. But they drew hundreds. They drew Bend down to stand in front of this ICE bus. So instead of, we can always process this in the normal way. And what was the normal way? Well, we let him go and tell him, show up for your court date. Instead, they brought in the Praetorian Guard, the SA Gestapo, and the SA Gestapo tear-gassed and beat the crap out of moms, dads, and yes, kids. Because they had to process two guys who've been living in the community for almost 20 years because of their citizenship status. They are brown, and they have to go to the icebox baby gulag. Larry Kudlow said, alien rights, we're not playing that game. That's not our game. Voting rights, we don't play that game. We rip out mailboxes, and we beat moms, dads, and kids protecting their neighbors from the SA Gestapo. If ballots over bullets doesn't work, what does that make us? I'm not saying we need to pick up the bullets just yet, because they got them. Let's be clear. I should get into what's on the rest of the menu, but I'm going to mention one other thing. My brother, the actor, and Trump aficionado, driving with his girlfriend, fiance, a significant other. We'll say significant other. Current significant other. I'm sorry. He'll never listen to this show. But he and her were traveling on I-5 at a considerable rate, and there have been a rash of shootings along that stretch of freeway from Grants Pass to Roseburg. And had his window shot out. Initially, I thought it was somewhere lower along the body. But no, his truck. A side window, glass went all over her and him, but it was on her side, I guess. I don't know. I shouldn't say that because, the ballistics have to be determined. Now, of course, the conjecture in Facebook around here is that it's Antifa, but Antifa doesn't have the weaponry. The right-wing white supremacists and the white nationalists have all the guns. But a couple of years ago, not even a couple of years ago, kids were busted for throwing rocks on the freeway in the area and causing accidents. And I think during the pandemic, while kids are cooped up at home and everybody has guns, hey, let's just, escalate this. You kind of abuse animals and you grow up to beat your wife and then become a cop. Or do you become a cop and beat your wife? Or do you do it simultaneously? But, abusing animals was sort of like you graduated. So I wonder if some kids have graduated from throwing rocks to shooting guns on the freeway. I don't think there's any political leaning or motivation. I think it's punk kids. And, is there a diversionary program for that? We'll find out after November, won't we? What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with over 1,000 dying a day and tests cut back to game the COVID numbers for his reelection? Trump accused Biden of playing politics with a pandemic. Like Mika said, does he really think Americans are that stupid? Yeah, he does. Because he thinks the deplorables are the only Americans in America. On the rest of the menu, a Wisconsin man pleaded guilty to vandalizing a synagogue last year as part of a neo-Nazi plot. A federal appeals court ruled a mail-only draft is constitutional, but the weird part is the lawyer who argued the case was killed by men's rights rival and wannabe judge killer Roy Den Hollander. Yeah, that guy. And Dodger Stadium will serve as a vote center for the presidential election in November. Well, someone is forward-thinking, and they're the first Major League Baseball franchise to do something about it. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the French government decreed that Paris, it's actually Paris, is a red, high-risk COVID zone again. And Australia awaits the findings of an inquiry of cruise ship passengers infected with COVID who disembarked in Sydney last March, triggering more than 600 cases and killing 20. All that and more. And you've gotten a lot of more already on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. I'd usually tell you at this time that if you went to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com to the right-ish of the page, you'd see the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln. I'd normally say that and everything after, but I'm going to abbreviate all of that right now because we got some news before we don't even take a break, but we have to take a little break. And I'll let Tom Hartman explain about, well, how you can at least start on becoming a regular Patreon of Netroots Radio. Kelly and Ricky are at Netroots Nation 20 right now in the virtual realm, and Netroots Radio is streaming live the keynote events and speeches on our Facebook page. So check that out. I'll provide links as far and wide as I can, but do check those out, and we'll have podcasts of interviews, and there's some great interviews both Ricky and Kelly have been conducting and will conduct before the weekend is over. So do stay tuned for that. So let's dive in right now to this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it comes out of the Associated Press by, well, anonymous worker bees. A Wisconsin man has pleaded guilty to vandalizing a synagogue last year as part of a neo-Nazi plot, federal prosecutors said yesterday, Thursday. Yusuf Berezna, 22, of Oak Creek, pleaded guilty Wednesday to a federal civil rights charge. U.S. Attorney Matthew Kruger of the Eastern Division of Wisconsin said. According to court documents, Berezna is part of a neo-Nazi white supremacist group known as The Base. Authorities said Berezny took part in online group chats with other base members in which they agreed to threaten and intimidate African Americans and Jewish Americans. Well, how nice. Prosecutors said on September 21st, Berezny went to Racine, Wisconsin synagogue and spray-painted anti-Semitic words and phrases, as well as a swastika and the symbol for the base on the building. Did you know Al-Qaeda means the base? Of course you do. I mean, we were only, those of us who were awake know. Violence and intimidation motivated by white supremacist ideology are abhorrent and have no place in this country, Kruger said in a statement. Berezny faces up to 10 years in prison and a maximum $250,000 fine when he is sentenced on November 23rd. So I guess if they're sending him to prison, he'll be able to hone his white supremacist cred even further. Let's not make that happen again as well, please. Kevin McGill of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. A federal appeals court in New Orleans upheld the constitutionality of the all-male draft system, citing a 1981 U.S. Supreme Court decision. Oh, now they're going to adhere to precedent, except some weird precedent that was overruled from rulings since 1981, but those aren't really precedents anymore, apparently. In a decision that overturned a 2019 ruling by a Texas-based federal judge, a panel of the 5th U.S. Circuit in New Orleans said only the Supreme Court may revise its precedent. Oh, really? The case was argued in March and was the result of a lawsuit by the National Coalition for Men and 2 men challenging the male-only draft. They argued that the 1981 case was decided at a time when women were largely absent from combat. Thursday's unanimous ruling from the 3-judge panel acknowledged that the factual underpinning of the controlling Supreme Court decision has changed. However, the judges noted that does not grant a court of appeals license to disregard or overrule that precedent. Oh, really? Now you're saying that? Jeez. Plaintiffs in the case could seek a rehearing before the full 17-judge appeals court or go to the Supreme Court. Carrie Crouch, president of the National Coalition for Men, said organization leaders will discuss their next move with attorneys. All I can tell you is we will be moving forward with this case. The U.S. government stopped drafting young men into the military in 1973, but every male must register for the draft when he turns 18. Earlier this year, after arguments before the 5th Circuit, a federal commission recommended including women in the military draft system, and that was just too much for the all-male males. Yes, men's rights. Our rights are being taken away. We have to actually work next to women. Ick. The 2019 District Court decision declaring the male-only draft unconstitutional had been appealed to the Selective Service System, and the appeal was argued during a series of 5th Circuit hearings at Tulane University. The judges were Carl Stewart, Dan Willett, and Jacques Wiener. Yeah, Federalist Society. Yeah. Arguing for the National Coalition for Men was Mark Angelucci, an attorney who was shot to death in July. Angeluni was killed in California by Roy Den Hollander. Yes. Rivals in the men's rights movement. Oh, you're taking my power and cred away. Die. That's what happened, and he was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound the day after an ambush shooting in New Jersey that killed U.S. District Judge Esther Salas's 20-year-old son and wounded her husband, who remains in hospital. Worker bees, who are anonymous at the AP, bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Dodger Stadium will serve as a vote center for the presidential election in November, making the Dodgers the first Major League Baseball team to make their venue available for voting. Any registered voter in Los Angeles County can visit the stadium over a 5-day period, and parking will be free. Further details will be announced later. The team said that all Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and Public Health guidelines will be followed regarding social distancing. Why not have a stadium in which people can physically vote if they have to then, eh? I'm sure Donald Trump will try to make that illegal, too, because, this guy doesn't want to lose. He doesn't. He can't. His life depends on it. The stadium site is a joint effort between the Dodgers and More Than a Vote, a nonprofit coalition of black athletes and artists working together to educate, energize, and protect young communities of color by fighting systemic voter suppression. Oh, you mean Antifa? Los Angeles Lakers star LeBron James helped create More Than a Vote. Well, that proves it right there. We are all in this together, James said in a statement. That is exactly why we created More Than a Vote. A lot of us now working together and here for every team who wants to follow the Dodgers' lead and turn their stadium into a safer place for voting. Well, I think the gauntlet has been laid out, folks. Dodger Stadium has been closed to the general public during the shortened 60-game season. However, the stadium and surrounding property have hosted the county's largest COVID-19 testing site and had been a staging ground for emergency equipment and a food distribution site for those experiencing food insecurity. Wow, humanity during a time of crisis. That is supposed to be the American response, not what we've been getting from you-know-who. All right, that does bring us to our short break, and we will take that short break and then come back and go through weather from around the world. Yes, we will, and finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, A Boy's Tale. The Spike Jonze-directed documentary, Beastie Boys' Story, is a trip back for Gen Xers. It's a pre-social media New York showbiz success story that will leave you wondering if the now juice-barred and gentrified New York could ever nurture such a thing again. As Mike Diamond, a.k.a. Mike D, put it, the idea of the Beastie Boys sprang from 3 high school friends who, by being in the right place at the right time, went on to become big stars before they could legally drink. None of them, or anyone else, thought that it would last, but by doubling down and learning, they discovered inner talent and became leaders and innovators in hip-hop's transition to the mainstream. The convention here is that of a slideshow or PowerPoint, all recorded at a theater in Brooklyn, featuring Diamond and Adam Horowitz, a.k.a. Ad Rock. It's complete with news footage, MTV clips, and cameos by moguls Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin, who first signed the Beasties before going on to make their mark. There's an apologetic tip of the hat to Kate Schillenbach. That's right, a female was a founding member and drummer in the Beastie Boys. They admit they didn't treat her well initially, though her act, Luscious Jackson, was the first signed to their Grand Royal label in the 90s. The two admit to past mistakes without false modesty and are never defensive. The most emotional aspect of the film has to do with the late Adam Yauch, a.k.a. MCA, who named the act and was its anchor. He passed away from cancer in 2012 at age 47, leaving a hole that Mike and Adam knew couldn't be filled as they immediately decided to disband the act. For anyone even remotely attached to the culture of the 80s and 90s, Beastie Boys' story is a biopic not to miss. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
In 2012 in the United States, about 317,000 motor vehicle crashes involved a large truck. 26,000 truck drivers and their passengers were injured in these crashes, and about 700 died. Trucker safety requires an alert, buckled-up, experienced driver with a reliable vehicle and a strong employer safety program. Seatbelts are the most effective way to prevent an injury or death in a motor vehicle crash, but in 2013, 1 in 6 drivers of large trucks didn't use their seat belts. Employers can help truck drivers stay safe by committing to driver safety programs at the highest level of leadership, establishing and enforcing driver safety policies, including requiring everyone in the truck to buckle up, and addressing factors that contribute to crashes, such as drowsy and distracted driving. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1936. That was the day that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act into law. The act was a key piece of the president's New Deal, a series of federal programs responding to the ravages of the Great Depression. Social Security would provide an income for retirees and the disabled to ensure that they did not slide into complete destitution. On signing the bill, President Roosevelt, known for delivering memorable speeches, addressed the press. He said, quote, "Today, the hope of many years standing in large part fulfilled. The civilization of the past 100 years, with its startling industrial changes, has tended more and more to make life insecure. Young people have come to wonder what will their lot when they come to old age. The man with a job has wondered how long that job will last. This Social Security measure gives at least some protection to 50 million of our citizens who will reap direct benefits through unemployment compensation, through old age pensions, and through increased services for the protection of children and the prevention of ill health." He went on to say, quote, "The law will flatten out the peaks and valleys of deflation and inflation. It is, in short, a law that will care of human needs and at the same time provide the United States an economic structure of vastly greater soundness." Over the past few decades, politicians have increasingly sounded the alarm that Social Security will not remain viable as the large baby boomer generation retires and draws benefits. Yet despite those who seek to attack Social Security, it remains a bedrock of the social safety net for millions of Americans. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Enjoy it while we can. We are going to be much warmer today. In fact, we are now in the official beginning of our excessive heat warning, expecting a high today of 101, which means it will be a tad warmer than that here at the mothership, with abundant sunshine, you would expect. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Some clouds overnight with lows in the high 60s. Winds out of the north at 5 to 10. And then tomorrow, sunshine and near record high temperatures of 108, which means it'll be a tad warmer. You know, I can't tell the difference between 115 and 108, if you ask me. Anyway, winds will be out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Sunday, we should have a cooling trend. We'll only be down to 102. On a more serious note, confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County here in Southern Oregon have now risen to 515, with 2 confirmed deceased. The deceased number is grossly undercounted. And those confirmed cases, though they have gone in increments of 15 and 20 a day, may in themselves be undercounts. Grass pollen is low right outside the window here at the mothership. The air quality index in the region is good at 35 parts per million, and the daytime UV index remains very high at 8. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.06 inches. Better not rise anymore. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 58%. That's pretty low this time of morning. All right, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 67 and cloudy. Paris is 66 with rain and a flash flood warning in Paris in August. Well, you know, they do have lightning storms and really big-time rumblers, too, that go through Paris. So that could be, I don't see thunderstorm activity, but I do see a flash flood watch. Rome is 90 degrees and fair, and they don't have excessive heat warning that would shut down their electric grid like is normal. I don't know why that is. Kyiv is 70 and fair. Kabul is 85 and fair. Hong Kong is 79 and fair. Wow, a lot of fair places, huh? Well, it looks like Tokyo is 84 and partly cloudy, though. Sydney, Australia is 58 and cloudy. Well, those are cooler places. San Francisco is 68 and only partly cloudy. And New York is 82 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather station somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Now, anonymous worker bees from Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The French government today, Friday, declared Paris and Marseille and its surrounding area high-risk zones for the coronavirus, granting authorities there powers to impose localized curbs to contain the spread of the disease, whereas our people prevent local governments and municipalities from being able to do anything because it'll be against the law. The declaration made in a government decree follows a sharp increase in COVID-19 infections in France over the past 2 weeks. On Thursday yesterday, France reported more than 2,500 new COVID-19 infections for the second day in a row, levels last seen in mid-April, when the country was in the middle of one of Europe's strictest lockdowns. The government move gives local authorities in Paris and the Bouches-du-Rhône area powers to limit the circulation of people and vehicles, restrict access to public transport and air travel, limit access to public buildings, and close restaurants, bars, and other establishments. Paris and Marseille had in recent days already made the wearing of face masks mandatory in busy public areas.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Brian Kay and Melanie Burton of Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Health officials in Australia's most populous state made unjustifiable and inexcusable mistakes which allowed cruise ship passengers with COVID-19 to disembark in central Sydney, an inquiry said today, Friday. The Carnival Corp owned Ruby Princess was for a time Australia's biggest single source of infection, with more than 600 cases and over 20 deaths directly linked to those passengers. Some 2,700 passengers, 120 of whom were feeling unwell, were allowed to leave the ship on March 19th, helping spread the virus across the country and internationally. New South Wales Health failed to ensure the ship knew of heightened screening for the virus or ensure that sick passengers were isolated in their cabins, a report by the inquiry concluded. It also failed to get quick test results for unwell passengers before they disembarked. If only we had the type of oversight in our system. Let's make sure we do that, assure that on November 3rd. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. And you know there's going to be a lot of news over the weekend, so stay tuned. And stay tuned for Netroots Nation live streams of the keynote speeches and events and podcasts for later. So stay tuned all day and all night and all weekend. And we'll meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Mondays, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Coeur. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.